I used to be an ordinary guy with a stable life. Nothing flashy, but I was happy. My name's Jack, and I was working as a mechanic in this small town in Ohio. I'd saved up some money over the years, and though I didn't have much, I had my old truck, a little house my dad left me, and my pride. Then she walked into my life. Her name was Jessica. Yeah, the kind of woman you'd only dream of if you were a guy like me. I met Jessica at a bar one Friday night. She was all legs and charm, with a smile that could make any man forget his troubles. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. I'll never forget how she laughed at my jokes. Real or fake, it didn't matter. She made me feel like I was the funniest guy on the planet. It felt like fate, like all those years of being single had been leading up to this moment. She seemed perfect, too perfect. It wasn't long before we started dating, and she moved in with me. I remember feeling like the luckiest guy in the world when she said she loved me. That's when things started to change, but I didn't see it at the time. I was too busy building a future for us. She had this big dream of opening a boutique downtown, and I thought, why not help her out? After all, isn't that what partners do? I invested every penny I had into that little store of hers, sold my truck and cashed in my savings. She said it would be worth it, that we'd be raking in money before long. For a while, things seemed great. The boutique opened, and Jessica threw herself into running it. I thought I was finally part of something bigger, but there were signs, little things that I should have noticed. Like how she'd always be busy on weekends when I wanted to spend time together, or how she'd leave her phone face down whenever she got a message. I'd hear her talking on the phone late at night, but whenever I asked who it was, she'd laugh it off and tell me not to worry. But I trusted her, because love makes you blind, right? My old buddies warned me, said she was out of my league, and I should keep an eye out. But I thought they were just jealous. I started working double shifts, even took on side gigs fixing up cars in my backyard to keep the boutique afloat during the slow months. We were barely scraping by, but I told myself it was temporary. I figured once the business picked up, we'd be all right. One day, she comes to me and says we should sell my dad's house, that it's holding us back. She had this plan to invest in a bigger location for the boutique, and she made it sound like a guaranteed success. At first, I resisted. After all, that house was all I had left of my family. But Jessica was persuasive. She said it was just a house, and that we'd build something even better together. I caved in, thinking I was making a sacrifice for our future. So, I sold it, and we put every last cent into that boutique. But things didn't turn out the way she promised. Instead of expanding, the new location was a disaster. No customers, high rent, and mounting bills. But Jessica seemed strangely unconcerned. She started dressing nicer, going out more, and whenever I asked her about it, she'd brush me off, saying she was meeting potential investors. I wanted to believe her, so I did. But deep down, I felt something shifting, like the ground beneath my feet was cracking open. Then came the day when everything fell apart. I came home early from work one night, hoping to surprise her with dinner. But when I opened the door, the place was empty. No furniture, no Jessica, no trace that she'd ever lived there. The only thing left was a note on the kitchen counter. It was short, blunt, just a few scribbled lines saying she was leaving, that she needed to find herself, and that she'd taken the rest of the money to start over somewhere new. I tried calling her, but her number was disconnected. I went to the boutique, but it was locked up, with an eviction notice taped to the door. Everything I'd worked for, gone. And just like that, I was left with nothing but the clothes on my back and a pile of debt. It felt like a bad dream, one I couldn't wake up from. I tried to piece together what had happened, but there was no making sense of it. I'd given her everything, and she'd taken it all without a second thought. I ended up sleeping in my car for a while, but even that got towed when I couldn't pay the tickets. I was homeless before I even realized what was happening, wandering the streets with nowhere to go. The people I thought were my friends, they turned their backs on me, said I was a fool for trusting her, like it was all my fault. Maybe it was, maybe I should have seen it coming, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd seen right through me, known exactly how to play me like a fiddle. And now, she was gone, and I was left picking up the pieces of my life in the cold. I spent the first few months just trying to survive, bouncing between shelters and sleeping under bridges. There's a sort of invisible wall that goes up between you and the world when you're out on the street. People stop looking you in the eye, like you're not even there. And the worst part is, I started to believe it, that I was invisible, that my life didn't matter anymore. I'd stand outside the stores downtown, the same ones I used to shop at, and watch people rush by, living their lives. I'd wonder if they had any idea how close they were to losing it all too. But the nights were the hardest. There's nothing lonelier than trying to sleep on a cold bench while the world sleeps soundly around you. I'd think about Jessica during those nights, about the life I thought we were building together. I went over every moment in my head, trying to figure out what I missed, what I could have done differently. But no matter how many times I replayed it, the ending never changed. She was gone, and I was alone. One rainy night, I ran into an old friend from high school, Mike. He didn't recognize me at first. I guess the beard and the worn-out clothes threw him off. When he finally did, I saw the pity in his eyes. He offered me a few bucks, but I couldn't take it. Instead, he bought me a cup of coffee, and we sat down to talk. I told him everything, how I lost it all, and how I had no idea where Jessica was now. He listened without judgment, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone actually saw me. Mike put me in touch with a local church that ran a soup kitchen and a temporary shelter. It wasn't much, but it was a start. They helped me get a shower, some clean clothes, and even a few odd jobs around town. I started feeling like maybe, just maybe, I could find a way back from this. But every time I thought I was getting my footing, something would knock me back down. A bad storm, a stolen backpack, or just a reminder of how far I'd fallen. Then, one day, while I was cleaning up trash at a park, I saw her, Jessica. She was walking with some new guy looking just as glamorous as the day I met her. She didn't see me, or maybe she did, and just pretended not to. My blood boiled, and for a moment, I thought about confronting her, demanding answers, demanding my life back. But as I watched her, I realized there was nothing left to say. She'd moved on, just like that, and I was just a chapter in her story she'd closed long ago. I turned and walked away, telling myself that my story wasn't over yet, even if it felt like I was writing it from rock bottom. And as I lay under the bridge that night, with the sounds of the river rushing nearby, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't let her be the end of me. I didn't know how I'd do it, but I was going to climb out of this hole one way or another. Maybe I'd never get back everything I'd lost, but I wasn't going to let her be the last word on my life. And so, I picked up the pieces, one day at a time, hoping that somewhere down the line, I'd find a new beginning. But for now, I just had to keep moving, keep surviving, and keep hoping that I could still turn this mess into a story worth telling.